Want help to grow your business? Download BRiN, the world's first business advisor in your pocket. To find out more, visit BRiN.ai or search the App Store today.
Hi, and welcome to this episode of How People Behave. I'm Mark Hoare, and this is Peter Agnew, and we're from People Development Australia. And we're going to be talking in this episode about how to discover and develop self-awareness. So we'll kick off with, well, I guess the first question, Peter, is what is self-awareness and how do you develop more of it?
Yeah, great question, Mark. And in this episode, we'll explore why is it important for leaders to have self-awareness and be self-aware of their own behaviour. In a snapshot, self-awareness is an understanding of the way you behave in certain situations. It's about having a really detailed understanding about how your moods affect you day to day within the workplace. What are the things that really tick you off, and that you're self-aware about those particular things and understand when they do happen, when there's some sort of stimulus, how you respond to that stimulus. So as we work our way through this particular session, we'll have a look at what are the ways we can become more self-aware, what are the areas that we may have as blind spots in our self-awareness, and how that affects us as a leader.
Okay, and I know that you've got a really great model that we're going to use to explain how that might work. Do you want to talk briefly to that, or do you want to cut straight to the explanation?
Yeah, let's have a look at the Johari Window on self-awareness.
Okay.
Well, Mark, today we're going to have a look at the Johari Window. Johari Window is a four-quadrant window, and it helps us to explain self-awareness in some ways. Funnily enough, the window is named after two characters, Joseph Loft and Harry Ingham. And both of those, Joe and Harry, have pretty much developed that name of the Johari Window. Four-quadrant window, and as we start labelling the windows, we can have a look at some of the things that you know about yourself up here. So the things that you know about yourself sit up in this particular area here. The things that you know also other people know about you as well. So we'll put a little label here that others know. And in this window, the things that you know about yourself and the things that other people know about you is what we call our open window. It's all the stuff that you actually know about yourself, you put out there to other people, and they know about you as well. So it's the things you know and others people know about you. But there's some things that we don't let other people know. We don't disclose information about ourselves sometimes. So it's things that other people don't know about you. Others don't know. And in this particular window, it's what we call our hidden or private window. It's the things that we just keep to ourselves a little bit and we don't disclose to other people much at all. It might be something that we've got a sick person in our family, or that we've got some particular issues, trauma at home, that we know ourselves, but we don't let other people know about those things that are happening in our life. So these are things we keep hidden from others. Where the Johari Window gets a little bit exciting is when we start moving over here, and it's the things that other people know about us, but we don't know ourselves. So you actually don't know as a business owner or leader. So it's the things that you don't know about yourself that other people do know about you. And this is what we call our blind space.
So what would be an example of that, Peter?
Yeah, so some of the things in this space here might be that you have a certain pattern of behaviour, so things that you do with your own behaviour that has an impact on other people. And we may not know that actually impacts on someone. For instance, if we're quite controlling as a leader, we may think that's a good way to lead others, but it will have an impact on others, and we really don't know sometimes the impact that's having. So in some ways, we're a little bit blind to that. And then the final window down here are the things that we don't know about ourselves and that other people don't know about us. And this is sort of our unknown space here. And sometimes we call this our area of potential. We may have the potential to be a fantastic piano player, but we've never got on a keyboard or never tried that skill out. So it's something that's unknown to us, the skill set in that particular area. So if we look at the 4 quadrants, we've got our open self, the things that we disclose to others, a little bit about our hidden self, the things that we keep private, our blind space that other people know. Sometimes it's the area that people have those water cooler conversations about us as leaders or people managers, and they're having that conversation about us, but we sort of don't know what that conversation is about or that they're having it. Where the window does get a little bit interesting is that these lines will move. And if we have a look at the next page I've drawn, you've got those labels there. You've got your open self and your hidden self. And in this particular area here, you've got a much larger open window. So you may be more self-disclosing as a leader, a little bit more open to others as a leader. And in this particular case, we tell people about ourselves. So by telling people about ourselves, we open that Johari window up and have some self-disclosure there. Now that will have a big impact on you and your team. There's probably one thing when I ask in training, what's the impact of having a larger open window? People will say things like, well, it develops trust. It develops deeper, more meaningful relationships. And this particular window here, when we do open it up a little bit and are a bit more open with ourselves to others, it will do those things. It will breed a deeper level of trust with our staff and our employees. It will make sure that we have a deeper level of relationship with others. Of course, some of you will sort of say, well, Peter, there's a great space in there that there's things in my life that I like to keep hidden, and there will be that. Some of us have a line that's right down here and we are over-disclosers, and when we do that, we can actually breach trust as well. I certainly know that some friends you may have on Facebook or something like that will disclose a lot of information about themselves and have a very small hidden area, and sometimes we call that over-disclosing it all. Mark, how do you go with your Facebook? Do you sort of jump in there a bit? Where would you sort of describe yourself?
I think that to have opinions on Facebook is very dangerous.
Yes, in some instances. But I think a healthy level of that where you do put some information about yourself out there. Of course, there's the risk of that. Self-disclosure sometimes is like jumping out of an aeroplane without a parachute. It can be pretty risky sometimes as well. So there's some natural reasons why we don't tell people about or information about ourselves. This line also moves here as well. So that blind space, the blind space line may move as well, and we may have a much bigger open space and a smaller blind space. We're quite self-aware is the terminology we use around that as well. So we can do that by asking people for feedback about ourselves. And as we go through this episode, we'll have a look at feedback, what feedback is, how do we actually get feedback about ourselves as leaders and individuals. So that line might move. We could have it a little bit differently, where we have a Johari window, again, things you know about yourself and the things that others know about you. But this time we may have a much larger blind space area. We still could have a fairly medium sort of hidden area and an area that's open. But in this model here, we've got a much larger blind space. And many of you may know those leaders that you sort of have or interact with, and you're just saying, wish someone would tell them when they do this, this is how it impacts us as a team or as individuals. And sometimes we say, I wish they would be more self-aware. So in this case here, a larger blind space, this person doesn't know as much about themselves as other people do, and the impact on their behaviour has on them as well. So today, Mark, I think the challenge is, how do we get this blind space smaller? How do we increase our open window? And how do we develop self-awareness so this isn't a impact, doesn't have a negative impact on us within the workplace? It doesn't have an impact on us that decreases our effectiveness as a leader within the workplace as well.
So thanks, Peter. That was really great. So when we look at the model, how do we consciously then open that open area and minimize the blind area and not become, someone who tells everybody everything, because we know people like that. So what are some of the ways that we can do that effectively?
Yeah, definitely, Mark. And it is really about getting feedback in this space here. I think one of the things that really good leaders do is they spend a lot of time on self-reflection and getting feedback on themselves. So we'll have a bit of a talk about ways that you can get feedback. Feedback's a bit of a challenge as well. There's points in feedback that are difficult. We've got a real balance between wanting to learn and grow as individuals, wanting to become the best we can be, and to do that we sometimes need critical feedback on our own behaviour. But as leaders, we also want to be accepted for who we are, all our faults and all our things that we do wrong. We want other people to accept those things as well. So feedback has a real balance between wanting to learn and grow and become better, but also just to be accepted about who we are and how we are as individuals as well.
And so you've got ask there. Is that enough? Because will people be daring and honest enough, or are there better ways as well as just asking?
Well, there are lots of ways. Asking is a metaphor for being able to ask through some form. It can be asking through one-on-one feedback. You and I do a lot of work with things like 360-degree profiles, where you're getting profiled and information from everyone around you within the workplace, your manager, your peers, your direct reports and others. And that's certainly one way of getting feedback. I think I have a little bit of an area that I like to say I like 365 feedback. Feedback every day of the year, where people are getting feedback from the people around them as it happens. So if you've had a meeting and you felt that it just hasn't gone too well, you've spent some time at the end of that meeting getting some feedback from those around you on how you handled that meeting. What were the things you'd like me to change? How did I go in some of those situations? Sometimes that can be pretty self-confronting and pretty confronting for us to be able to do that. But as we go through this particular section, it's really about being comfortable with getting feedback in a number of different ways.
Okay.
So Mark, as we move through and start having a look at feedback, there are some ways that we can get feedback. Certainly asking people is one way to get feedback about your own leadership, and we can do that through one-on-one interactions and talks with others. But Mark, you've probably had some experiences with performance reviews and so forth. That's also a great way to get feedback as well.
Yeah, always interesting thing I find about performance feedback reviews is there's only three real outcomes, and that is one, that people are actually very self-aware and their perception of their own their reality of the world and other people's view of their view is the same, is very similar. The other one is where people's perception of themselves is that they're far more effective and they are sort of rock stars in their own mind, if you like, and the reality is that other people don't share that view. Yep. That response can be very confronting. And then equally as confronting and much more of an opportunity perhaps is when the leader views themselves as maybe not so as effective, but their peers and their colleagues and their seniors actually see them as highly effective. Yeah. So that may be a self-concept piece or a self-confidence piece. So they're the three pieces. They match. They're different in terms of I think I'm great and other people think there's a lot of growing for me to do, or other people think I'm far more effective than I am. They're the three typical examples.
And being able to measure that through a tool is sometimes a really good thing to get as a snapshot. I think we're big fans of getting that 365 feedback every day of the year. Yep. But there's some really good advantages to getting that snapshot feedback, isn't there, where you can actually stop at a given point of time, get people around you to give you feedback in a formal sense, measure it against some really strong leadership competencies, and then be able to deliver feedback. Again, delivering the feedback's the hard one though as well, isn't it?
I was reading recently the two greatest human traits are vulnerability and humility. And as leaders, they are not things that are often seen to be valued. And yet if we're humble enough to require that feedback and vulnerable enough so that we encourage that feedback, so we do deliberately improve, and we meet leaders who are very, very good at these two key areas, the difference in the teams that they create is really obvious.
Yeah, definitely. And of course, not only feedback from people around you and feedback from something like a 360, but personality profiles also play a really big role in getting feedback about yourself. So in this series, we really sort of delve into some personality sort of profiles, and particularly the DISC profile, to be able to measure behaviour in some ways and to give feedback.
And it's interesting when people talk about personality profiling and the fact that we are worried about.
To continue enjoying this presentation, download BRiN, the world's first business advisor in your pocket. To find out more, visit BRiN.ai or search the App Store today.